love hearing those preschool songs. So I'm super excited about that new CD. I know I bought it yesterday. So I'm from Texas. So do we have anyone else here from Texas? Yes! That is great news. So in Texas, we say y'all. And so I am so excited to see y'all this morning. Are you guys excited to be here? I know it's like after lunch. You may get a little bit of sleep time. Maybe got some coffee. I know I did. So hopefully we're all good there. Well, so like Brittany said, I just stepped into a family pastor role at my church. And so I'm overseeing birth through 18 years. And I am really enjoying seeing how all the puzzle pieces fit together. But I have to say, it is really good to be with some preschool friends today. It is really good because I know they're not supposed to have favorites. And I know I couldn't say this necessarily around my staff team, but I feel like I'm in good company enough to say it today. Preschool is my favorite. It is my favorite because what other phase can you walk in on a Sunday if you've had a really rough weekend and get some baby snuggles that can soothe your heart, right? There is no other ministry that does that. What other ministry, if you forget to eat breakfast, have you ever eaten an entire breakfast out of goldfish? Yes, okay? Preschool ministry is the best phase, and not just for silly, fun little reasons, but I believe that it's where God intended us to start. And I don't know about you, but I trust my good God. And if He told us to start there, then I think it's the best place to start. And so I think that preschool ministry is my favorite because I know it's where God intended us to start. And because preschoolers psychologically are learning more birth to 5 years than they will ever learn again in their entire lives. I don't know about you guys, but I had some hard classes in college, and I learned a lot of material, like weeks and months, like leading up to fact, more than they ever will again in their entire lives. And it's our responsibility to be the ones speaking facts and truth into their lives because God made them to start learning them now. He didn't make them to learn later. He wanted them to build a foundation and have it built on. There's a reason, if you had a baby, that you don't have an 18-year-old right away. Is anyone glad they didn't birth an 18-year-old? Okay, right? And so we were meant to grow developmentally, psychologically, spiritually over time. It was meant to be a foundation. You don't go from crawling to running. You go from crawling to kind of this little awkward like toddle, like walk around the surf couch thing, to walking to running. Right? There's stages, and so faith is the same way. And so I could go on and on about why preschool is my favorite, but I just am so excited to be here. I got on a little tangent because preschool ministry, I believe it's yours. How tightly are you holding it? Do you think that it's in your control? Because it's not. And so whenever you choose, whatever that is, for me that was choosing at 5 p.m. on Fridays, I would stop and I would submit it to God. And whatever happened, happened, right? That was for me, that was an act of faith in choosing to let God do what He can do on His terms. And for you, maybe something different. And so I'm not going to try to force what I do on you guys, but for me, that's how it worked. And I even had coaches over each group of volunteers. And so I would have one coach over about 12 to 15 small group leaders. And so I had them on Planning Center or however it works. I would have them watch the schedule. And so they would watch the schedule because honestly, at the end of the day, my coaches were the ones that were running those set of classrooms on Sunday mornings. And so they're the ones who needed to know if someone canceled or not anyways. So if I was watching it, then I would have to tell them too, because they're the ones that it impacted most. And so we know, and because it's true for you and I, that our parents were created to be the primary spiritual discipler. So our role is to equip the church to partner with parents, to equip parents to have spiritual conversations, to empower them, to encourage them. Because I believe every parent wants to be the best parent, equip them and give them tools. And I think that we're going to increase our reach far beyond what we could have ever hoped. And so we have to remember that what we're preparing inside the classrooms, it goes far beyond the inside of their classrooms. It goes to the outside of their classrooms too. So each week, we are preparing not just for preschoolers, but we are preparing for preschoolers, volunteers, and parents. And so we're actually preparing for 3 people groups. So guys, your job just got 3 times harder. You signed up for practical preschool prep, and this lady's talking about volunteers and parents. But remember, the best way to love preschoolers is to love the adults who love preschoolers. So in order to welcome these awesome 3 people groups, I think it's super important that we step into their shoes. So as we talk about stepping into the shoes of a preschooler today, I brought 2 little cute preschooler shoes with me so we can help step into their shoes. And when you step into someone's shoes, you ask yourself, what does it feel like to be this person? What is this person asking as they walk into my environments? What does this person need to feel loved? What does this person want to get out of this weekend, right? When you step into their shoes, you start asking different questions. So So make sure you step into a preschooler's shoes to figure out how to welcome them. And I think preschoolers are asking, is it safe? Who is caring for me? Who are you? And I think that they learn best through schedule and repetition and predictability. So it changes how we prepare for preschoolers when we step into their shoes. And we prepare for preschoolers because we are doing ministry to the littlest of hearts. We are not babysitting. And I think you need to read that with me because I think we need to believe it. So read it with me. We prepare during the week for preschoolers because we are doing ministry to the littlest of hearts, not babysitting. There's no B word in preschool ministry. There's no babysitting because we are doing ministry to the littlest of hearts. We are building a foundation, a spiritual foundation that these kids can grow on. That when they get to elementary years, that they know what it's like to sit in a small group. They know what it's like to have a consistent adult pour into them and ask about their week. So they've learned that in preschool, so when they get to elementary school, they can really start wrestling with bigger faith questions and salvation questions. But if we don't prepare them for what it looks like to come to church and to be in a small group in preschool, we've missed it and not set up elementary as well. Every time we choose to fight for weekly consistent volunteers in the life of a preschooler, we're setting up elementary well. See mommy taking such good care of babies. They play kitchen because they see mommy making great food. Well, Cece plays large group. So let me show you. Oh.
I can't do it. How's everybody doing? Good job. Let's sit down, put hands together, one time. Dear God, we thank you for all the things you did for us. Lord, we thank you for church and my family and everybody in this whole wide world. I love you too. Amen. Okay, it's time for our Bible verse, fifth song, and then Ollie. God loves us each way, loves him.
I'm not sure what that one is.
3, 2, 1. Yahweh is perfect. Perfect every time. Yahweh is heaven.
I just don't think you need any other words, right? Like, oh my goodness, little Cece's a future large group leader once she can figure out how to hold the mic and talk, right? So, whatever your context, whatever curriculum you use, I think preschoolers can learn to love the Lord their God with their heart, soul, and mind through some Irish volunteers. And I have a pair of tennis shoes for our volunteers so that we can put ourselves in a volunteer's shoes because they are running around like crazy on Sunday mornings. Our volunteers are awesome. So let's step into a volunteer's shoes. Let's think about what does a volunteer need to be successful? What is a volunteer asking us? What does a volunteer want to know that they're not asking? Think through those questions and it will greatly bless you. So we prepare during the week for volunteers because they are not just the means to ministry, they are ministry. And I will say that again because it's a passion from my heart. We prepare during the week for volunteers because they are not just the means to ministry, they are ministry. Every single one of you has a group of volunteers in your ministry, whether it's 2 volunteers or 200. You have people in your ministry that are giving their time to help the mission of your church move forward. And whether or not you choose to be a good steward of that is up to you. You have volunteers that are serving in your ministry, that part of them following Jesus is learning how to live out their faith. You have people serving in your ministry who don't know the Bible stories yet, and they're serving in preschool so they can learn them. You have volunteers serving in your ministry who are serving alongside their parents so that when their child goes off to college, they're not going to remember the times at home, they're going to remember the times where their teenage daughter wiped the snot off their 2-year-old's face. Ministry is happening to your volunteers in your classroom, whether you realize it or embrace it or not. And I think a lot of you guys are embracing it, but I just want to talk about that today because it is so important to me. Our scripture tells us that we are a body. We are a body, that we are one big body giving him glory, and that it can be a finger, it can be a nose, it can be a mouth. That you can't look to another part of the body and wish you're one of the other. I don't need 4 eyes. The glasses joke. Anyways, but I don't need 4 ears, right? So I don't need 4 ears. I just need 2 ears. And so if every volunteer finds their right seat on the bus to serve, then you have a big, beautiful machine. But you don't need volunteers that are comparing themselves to one another or that are trying to be someone they're not. But if they play to their sweet spot, if they figure out how did God wire me? How did he gift me? And if we as staff members are being a safe place for volunteers to come to us and say, hey, God wired me this way. I have these cool gifts and resources that are like God gave me, like, hey, I love to sing, and I just don't know how to use it. I don't want to be on main stage, and you're like, preschool worship, right? So if we can be good stewards, and if we can be a safe place for volunteers to come and tell us that they have these gifts, they just don't know how to use them, then we're going to be entering into doing ministry with volunteers and not just using them as an end to our ministry or a means to our end. So I think that's just super crucial. So when I think about volunteers and being a good steward of them, I think about creating a culture that you want to be a part of and not a destination. So I brought with me some heels to help us think about our parents, because I don't know about you, but in Dallas, Texas, we have some parents that come in some really cute but very uncomfortable heels. And they've got like a preschooler on this hip and a preschooler on this hip, and then one holding on to their little sweater as they're walking. And they've got it all together, man. They're coming in and they're making it. And, hey, I just praise them for making it. I can't wear heels on a weekend, but I'm glad they can. But so I want us to think about our parents. What questions are they asking as they come into our environments? And thinking through those same questions. So we prepare during the week for parents so that weekends can be the springboard of their week and not the destination. I kind of talked about that earlier a little bit, how in my family, I know that I wish that my parents had been a primary spiritual influencer. I wished it, because I know that God created them to be, and it's beautiful now, full circle, because they are Christians, and they are involved in the church, and it's just a sweet full circle kind of story. But think about that. How can your weekends be a springboard for the rest of the week and not the final destination? How can you set parents up for the next 6 days to have spiritual conversations, to lead their families, and then come back for the weekend because they're so exhausted and they need some more tools, right? We should be the water break. These parents are on a marathon. They're on an 18-year-plus marathon, and they need some water breaks. So how can we as the church be the water break where they're coming back and they're getting refueled, they're getting cheered on, they're saying, you're doing a great job. It's not as long as you think. Keep going, because the days are long, but the years are short. And preschool parents need to be told that. They need someone to cheer them on and to get in their corner and say, oh, this phase is so beautiful and so sweet because of this. It's going to go by so quick. So make sure you're capitalizing on it. They need someone to set them up to have spiritual conversations. So how can we do that? Equip parents to do our part so God can do his part. We prepare our part so God can do his part. And I think that as I conclude, and I'm going to wrap up real quick, guys, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that there's one more person that needs to prepare during the week. Can anyone guess who that is? It's yourself, right? So we prepare us so that we have something to give them. And earlier we talked a lot about loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And so every week I try to make sure that I'm preparing my heart, my soul, and my mind. Preparing my heart because my heart, I don't know about y'all, it's a fickle thing. So I have to decide in advance how I'm going to react when a volunteer cancels. I have to decide in advance how I'm going to handle it when I'm out of curriculum or my curriculum team didn't package things the way they should have. Am I going to throw them under the bus in the moment, or am I going to choose to problem solve it and give grace? I have to choose that during the week, because in the moment, my heart is a fickle thing, and it will always choose the less honoring option. Make sure you're fighting to prepare your mind. And this quote, I can't take credit for it, but I don't remember who said it, so therefore, it's not mine though. But if your output exceeds your intake, your upkeep will be your downfall. Your upkeep of trying to keep up, to stay filled up enough, to get enough rest, to keep up with the 10 things that you forgot, the school schedules, the audition schedules, getting all these kids ready to go to school, your upkeep will be your downfall. If your output exceeds your intake, your upkeep will be your downfall. So my question to you is, what is your intake? Orange Conference is a great start, but what are weekly, monthly, yearly rhythms that you can pour into your soul? Because here's the reality, you guys are an ambassador. You are Christ's ambassador for your church, your community, your families, your volunteers, and you matter. Your health matters because you matter to God. There's too much at risk. There's too much at stake, and God never calls you to sacrifice your family on the altar of ministry. There's too much at stake. Your health matters. Your spiritual health matters. And so I have a verse for us to end on today. And I just love this one. It says, it's Hosea 10:12. I said, plant the good seeds of righteousness, and you will harvest a crop of love. Plow up the hard ground of your hearts, for now is the time to seek the Lord, that he may come and shower righteousness upon you. I'm not a big gardener, but I do know a little bit about gardening. That it involves tilling up the soil, fertilizing the soil, and even when you plant a seed, it takes time for roots to grow, and even more time for a little green to sprout through, even more time for a branch, and even more time for leaves. We are in this, it's a marathon, right, guys? And so if we can plant the good seeds of righteousness one seed at a time in our lives, in the hearts of our preschoolers, our volunteers, and our parents, and if we can plow up that hard ground, because God is going to be the one that comes and showers righteousness. He is a good and faithful gardener, and he wants to grow a beautiful thing in you and in your future. I would love to pray for you guys today. You are a good gardener. You are faithful, and I want and we want you to show up in our lives, to show up in our churches, to take over this ministry for us, because we can't do it on our own. God, we ask that you bring us the volunteers that we need, and that, Lord, we wouldn't just be searching for warm bodies, but we would be searching for people to link arms with, to do ministry with. We pray that you would send us new families that don't know you, that we would get to introduce you to them. God, we pray for preschoolers to find you and to follow you with all their little hearts. God, and we pray for rest. We pray for time to sit before you and to remember whose we are and whose mission this is. May we remember that we are not human doings, we are human beings created to sit before our Maker. God, you are good. Be with these sweet people, these sisters and brothers in Christ. We love you. We commit all these things to you. Thank you for preschool ministry. We love you so much, Jesus.